Okay, so we're going to be looking at the Edit Fill menu item. So this gives you some interesting options. So for example, if I go and I make a selection of the sky, just a very rough selection, I'm not taking my time with it at all. And I'm just for good measure, I'm going to save that selection in case I need it later again. Call it sky. Now, if I set, let's say, I'll set my foreground color to yellow and my background color to blue, and then I go Edit Fill, you can see that I have the option to just fill with the foreground or the background color. So if I choose foreground color and OK, it literally fills it with that color. So I'm going to undo that and go back here. But what I can also do is I can change things like blending mode and opacity. So if I put it on foreground color and I set it to something like overlay, maybe with a 50% opacity, that's going to give me quite a nice interesting result. So you can see how you can use fill with a selection and with your blending modes and opacities to get interesting results, unless you just want a straightforward 100% fill. Now there's other options in fill as well. So what I'm going to do here is undo, deselect, and I'm going to make some change to this image. So I'm going to go Image, Adjustments, Levels, and I'm just going to take my highlight point and I'm going to move it up. And I'm not worried about the sky at the moment. I am focusing on when the city starts to kind of show itself. So there it's very dark, and now it starts to show itself. So there's about right. And say OK, but now of course the sky is messed up. So I'm going to load that selection again. Select, load selection, sky, OK. And I'm going to go Edit. Sorry, before I do that, I need to go to my history panel, and up the top here I need to make sure that my history source is set to the original image. And then I'm going to go Edit, Fill, History, and I'm going to take it back to normal, and let's just say I want it to go 80% opacity with the original sky. Press OK and deselect, and you can see that that's actually done a fairly good job of preserving the sky. In other words, we've filled back in history, but we've kept the city nicely exposed. Okay, so what else do we have under fill? So Edit Fill, we also have pattern, which I'm going to cover next. We have black, 50% gray, and white. Okay, so I'm just going to put this back to 100%. And we're going to move to this image, and I'm just going to have a look at filling with a pattern. So if I say pattern, and I go and choose a pattern, so let's just say trees, and leave it as it is and say OK, it actually fills that with trees. So you have various patterns available to you. You can also download patterns, but what if you want to make your own pattern? So I'm going to go back to our cruising shark from the brush exercise, and I'm going to use my quick selection tool just to make a selection of the shark. In fact, this is not reverted. Let me just revert this back. Okay, there we go. Selection of the shark. And I'm going to fill that with black, so D to set my default foreground and background color to black and white, and then Option or Alt backspace. Then I'm going to press Command or Control J to lift that selection into its own layer, and I'm going to delete the background layer, and then trim this down, Edit, Trim, Transparent Pixels, and OK. So it trims it all the way down to just the shark. Then I'm going to go Edit, Define Pattern, and I'll just call it Shark Pattern, and OK. So now if I go back to this image here and I say Edit, Fill, I'll go and choose that shark. There it is. And instead of saying OK, which is just going to do that, I'm going to instead go to Script, and I'm going to choose a script that controls how the pattern works. So I'm going to press Spiral and OK, and it's going to open up this dialog box where I can control a whole lot of things to do with that particular pattern. So I'm just going to change a few things here. Okay, that's probably that's better. Space them out. Okay, I like that. Let's just take the scale down a little bit. And then say OK. So you can see how I can get a really interesting pattern with my own pattern that I've created and using a script. So that's really where the pattern tool is kind of useful for all those different options. If you want to know the shortcut for filling, so if I make let's just load that selection again, sky, and if I want to fill with a foreground or background color, instead of going Edit Fill, the shortcut is Command or Control Backspace to fill with the background color, and Option or Alt Backspace to fill with the foreground color. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and see you next time.